Thank you for viewing this recorded Reliable Automatic Sprinkler Company webinar. Should you have any questions regarding this presentation, please feel free to contact Reliable Technical Services at 800-557-2726 or email us at techserve@reliablesprinkler.com. For upcoming webcasts and an archive of past webcasts, please visit reliablesprinkler.com/webcasts. Once again, thank you and enjoy the presentation.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning still to most of you, perhaps good afternoon or evening if you're joining us from outside the U.S. We really appreciate you being here. Greetings from, interestingly enough, a snowy Seattle, Washington this morning. So today we're going to be talking about a not too uncommon, but certainly not ubiquitous, our word for the day, fire protection product, and that's a cabinet-mounted water-based fire protection systems. So depending on the manufacturer, you'll hear these called by several names: Fire Pack, Total Pack, Red E, or Pre-Action Pack. But the only one you really need to remember is the Reliable Pre-Pack. Now, I promise the entire presentation won't be a sales pitch, and hopefully you'll be able to take away something of value regardless of your preferred manufacturer. As always, we're going to start with our disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed today are those of the Reliable Automatic Sprinkler Company and more precisely me. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the NFPA or any other agencies that we may discuss. So the first part of the presentation is going to be a bit of a basic review. We all know there are four primary types of water-based fire protection systems: wet pipe, dry pipe, pre-action, and deluge. But which of these are special systems? And what makes a special system? So the Oxford Languages defines special as better, greater, or otherwise different from what is usual. So I don't think anyone will disagree that wet systems, which are essentially an extension, in most cases anyway, of a city water supply all the way to the sprinklers, are the most usual or common systems. So while every fire protection system is special in some regard, for our purposes today, we're going to say that wet pipe systems are not special. Now, normally we would talk about dry systems next, but let's change things up a bit, because as we're going to see, the valve used for deluge systems, interestingly enough called the deluge valve, serves as the foundation for the rest of our discussion today. So unlike conventional differential dry pipe valves, a type of water control valve, deluge valves use a series of links, levers, springs, and diaphragm to hold water back at our riser room. Unlike other water-based fire systems, deluge valves use open discharge devices. These can be sprinklers, nozzles, and in some cases, monitors. Interestingly enough, there was some discussion in one of the committee meetings, and I believe several of the standards referred to these as water cannons. And we've now gotten rid of that term. We just didn't think that cannons was a great word to be using in the fire protection industry. So monitor nozzles will be what we're talking about there. So most often with these water control valves, hydraulic pressure is going to be taken from directly below the valve, and that hydraulic pressure is going to serve to hold our deluge valve closed. When this hydraulic pressure is released due to activation of the detection system, this valve is going to operate and water is going to be delivered to the fire. So why do we use deluge systems? Why do we have them? Most often these are going to be used for a 2 or 3 dimensional fire that's going to involve ignitable liquids. For example, an NFPA 409 aircraft hangar, although that's changing a little bit too, as we're seeing today. But that liquid, as it rolls across the floor horizontally, if it's on fire, it presents a challenge to sprinklers that are directly above it. So what we need to do in that case is have a rapid system activation, and we're going to deliver water over an entire predetermined fire area. These deluge systems are often going to be required or used for surface cooling, directional spray systems like cooling towers, oil-filled transformers, propane tanks, and things of that nature. So when you see the unique need and the hazard levels that are associated with deluge systems, I think everyone would agree that deluge systems are special. Let's talk next about pre-action systems. But in doing so, we're going to need to break these down, starting with single interlock. So as mentioned, the mechanical deluge valve is at the heart of these systems. What we're going to do is simply revise the release trim to build a different type of system. So unlike its close cousin, the deluge system, the single interlock system is going to use closed discharge devices. When we close the system off with closed devices, that's going to allow us, if we need to, and in most cases we're going to supervise that system pressure. We're going to supervise that system with air or nitrogen pressure. That is going to tell us that the integrity of the system is maintained and we have no open devices on our system, pipes, sprinklers, or nozzles. The same principle is going to hold true using hydraulic pressure to hold the valve closed, and the release of the valve on a single interlock is going to happen simply with the detection system, hence the single and single interlock. Once the once the valve has operated, we're going to then fill that closed piping system with water and essentially convert it into a wet pipe system. Now, it's important to note that our detection system is going to be designed to be more sensitive than our fire sprinklers. We'll revisit that in a few minutes, but keep this in mind when it comes to choosing your detection method. Now, I'm not quite sure what the ratio of single to double interlock systems is, but suffice to say that we see them used regularly. Now, like single interlock, they're going to use closed discharge devices and our friend, the mechanical deluge valve. But there's one fundamental difference between single and double interlock systems that is apparent in the name, and that is the number of events required to open the deluge valve. It changes from 1 on single interlock to 2 for a double interlock. Again, we're going to have a detection system operating first when things work properly. But along with that, we must have loss of pneumatic pressure in the system. Now, that loss of pressure in the system in a fire event would be the subsequent opening of 1 or more sprinklers following the early detection of the fire. The loss of that pneumatic pressure without a detection system in activation will result in an alarm condition only, as will a detection signal without loss of air pressure or nitrogen pressure in the system. Once the detection system activates, the double interlock pre-action system is essentially converted to a dry pipe system, and as such requires the same design adjustments as a dry pipe system. And for that reason, double interlock systems are uniquely suited for use in freezer applications. Finally, the little known or utilized non-interlock pre-action system. So rinse and repeat on the closed discharge devices and hydraulically latched deluge valve. By placing 2 different release mechanisms in parallel fashion, however, the system operates either as a dry pipe system or as a single interlock system. Loss of pressure on a pneumatic actuator, the same pressure that's in the system, opens the actuator, which in turn releases the hydraulic pressure holding the deluge valve closed. No detection signal needed. Conversely, activation of the detection system opens a normally closed solenoid, which in turn releases the hydraulic pressure holding the deluge valve closed. No loss of air or nitrogen pressure needed. So in some ways, this can be considered a true fail-safe pre-action system. So why pre-action? Why do we have pre-action system? if you've listened to reliable presentations before, you've heard this. The primary purpose of pre-action systems are to prevent the accidental release of water into water-sensitive environments. The alarm that results from the detection system operating first, again, when everything is working properly, alerts the owner or the occupants of impending water discharge if that fire continues to grow and eventually releases one or more fire sprinklers. The pneumatic pressure supervision that we talked about with the closed system or monitoring with the pressure switch notifies the owner and the occupants if there are breaches to the system integrity, if a fire sprinkler has been broken, if a pipe has been broken, if a valve has been opened. Now, you'll notice the two asterisks here on this one. This is not true of the non-interlock system. Remember, the non-interlock system operates either as a dry pipe or as a single interlock. So a broken sprinkler, open valve, broken pipe on a non-interlock system will result in operation of that deluge valve. So common applications for pre-action: data centers, historical libraries, museums, control rooms, and freezers. I put a little note in blue there. Think about this if you're involved in prison work. Think about how a single or even a double interlock system might benefit the owner, or the operators of a prison. Prisoners are bored. They have nothing to do but think about how to mess things up. And then finally, I'm going to throw out a challenge question there for people. What specific occupancy in NFPA 13 requires non-interlock pre-action systems? Interested to see if someone can come up with the answer to that. So given that the primary purpose of most pre-action systems is to prevent the accidental release of water into our water-sensitive environments, into our mission-critical facilities, and into freezers, we certainly need to categorize pre-action systems as special. So, all right, Mr. Reliable, so why did you save dry systems to the end, and why are they special? Well, most of them aren't. But when we use our friend, the mechanical dry valve, or mechanical deluge valve, and trim it for dry pipe operation, they offer some special features that make them rather special. The mechanical advantages that compound with the use of links, levers, springs, and diaphragms allows this valve to operate on very low pneumatic pressures. In the case of the reliable DDX valve, from 8 to 28 psi. That 28 psi will offset 300 psi of water pressure. That low system pressure holds a pneumatic actuator closed, which in turn holds hydraulic pressure on the valve. That loss of air or nitrogen pressure upon sprinkler activation opens the actuator. That results in the loss of hydraulic pressure on the side chamber of the valve, resulting in operation of the deluge, or in this case, low pressure dry pipe valve. So not every dry system is special, but we categorize low pressure dry systems as special. Now, just a note here. Anyone listening whose job it is to set up these valves, please take note. More air pressure is not better. We call them low pressure valves for a reason. So one more time, if you're setting these up, more air or nitrogen pressure is not better. We do not ever want to see 40 or 50 pounds of air pressure on these low pressure dry systems. So why low pressure dry? What makes them special? That low pressure allows for larger and often fewer systems than our conventional dry pipe valves. The air pressure that's residual in the piping after the system is operated, that's moving against that moving water, is less. That allows that water to move faster down the pipe, gives you a better chance of meeting water delivery requirements. We have empirically witnessed this and have results of large dry systems where that 60-second water delivery time is met with the use of these low pressure dry systems. Also, that low pressure and that ability to get water faster may eliminate the need for costly accelerators. So oftentimes we'll hear people say that low pressure dry system is more expensive. Well, here's a hint. If I can get rid of that costly accelerator and the maintenance that comes along with that, we're going to offset some of that potentially additional cost. Low system pressure results in a smaller air compressor. Again, an opportunity to offset some of that perceived additional cost of a low pressure dry pipe system. If you're using nitrogen, it is purchased by volume. Volume is directly related to pressure in the system. Lower system pressure results in less nitrogen needed to be put into the system. And finally, the mechanical valve is much less susceptible to false tripping. Remember, it's held closed by hydraulic pressure coming right off the manifold below the system. A spike in pressure in that manifold is going to be immediately transmitted to the side chamber, which is going to put more pressure across the latching mechanism to hold that valve closed. Not the case with conventional dry pipe valves. I like to say that the first time that a conventional dry system trips and you do not get paid to go out at 2:30 in the morning, you certainly have offset a lot of the cost, if not all of the cost, of going to that higher priced, potentially higher priced, low pressure dry system. And then finally, low pressure systems will leak less, everything else being equal, right? You cannot have a leak at zero pressure. So anything that's less than the next highest pressure, you're going to have fewer leaks, everything else, again, being equal. So due to the numerous advantages of the low pressure dry pipe system, it certainly deserves a spot in our special systems category. So we've determined what special systems are, and all these systems are available in these cabinet mounted systems. So let's now talk about pre-packs. Hopefully your cabinet of choice by the end of this presentation, but the reasoning behind this product line holds across all manufacturers. So let's take these in order of value proposition. Why would you spend quote unquote extra on cabinet mounted systems? Well, number one, liability. Special systems are used to protect facilities and operations where loss or disruption from fire will have massive financial repercussions. The ability of these systems to do their job is based not only on proper selection of the equipment, but also on the ability of the design and installation team to, how do I want to say it, put the puzzle together. So the rule rather than the exception is that the alarm detection and release system and the fire sprinkler contractor will be operating under separate contracts. This presents an opportunity for busts in the communication and in the scope of work. Cabinet mounted systems that incorporate a listed combination of compatible electrical and mechanical devices remove much of that potential, and the resulting install can be counted on to operate as needed, when needed. Why not let us take on some of that liability? Number two, cost savings. Now, come on, Mr. Reliable. I mean, just a minute ago, you said, why spend extra? Now it's cost savings. Well, the price of these units, let's face it, may shock you. But like many things, that first glance is deceptive. So let's walk through this with a non-cabinet standalone system. First, the specifying engineer must completely and accurately specify the water-based system as well as the detection system, often in different sections of the CSI specifications. So no offense to our engineers, but here's a potential for mistake number one. Second, the project estimator must determine the scope, likely is going to exclude the electrical portion. He's got to determine that scope completely and accurately, and take off everything that's needed. No offense to the estimators out there. I've been there and done that, but here's a potential for mistake number 2. Third, the designer must completely and accurately design all necessary parts of the system, hopefully coordinate with that fire alarm contractor. So no offense to our designer friends, because I've been there and done that as well. Here's a potential for mistake number 3. 4, our purchasing department must completely and accurately procure the necessary equipment from various vendors and make sure it arrives on time. Potential for mistake number 4. 5th, a lot of different components must get from the shop to the job site on time. How many extra trips might that entail? How much material might get misplaced? Here's potential for mistake number 5. 6, all of those materials must be installed properly. No offense to the sprinkler fitters out there. We love those guys, but here's potential for mistake number 6. And then finally, everything must come together with regard to coordination for the final and commissioning. And often the timing of this is out of our control and results in lost time. Sorry, let's go back. So we have at least 6 functions with potential for human error and job site conditions that will likely be out of our direct control, resulting in a lost time. So cabinet systems afford the ability to wrap a lot of this into a nice tight bow. And if we can limit the electrical involvement to hooking up oftentimes 2 wires on a detector loop, bringing some power to the box, and a couple of relay monitoring wires, why would you not do this? So I would throw a challenge out there to anyone to do an honest study of everything involved with making these systems happen and see if there is really quote unquote extra cost. Finally, number 3, aesthetics. I get you a little hint of this one that was coming. So I don't know for sure, but I'm thinking that the idea of these cabinet mounted systems originated years ago with the advent of these small server rooms like you might see in a legal firm or a financial firm. So these units are often supplemental to the main building wet system, and finding a place to install a sprinkler riser on a tenant fit out and not have it be an eyesore can be problematic. Cabinet systems such as the pre-pack fit the bill in many cases, but they certainly don't need to be limited to this use. Keep them in mind, even if you want to provide them as an ad alternate, where an owner might be concerned about having a riser out in the middle of a room somewhere. So limiting liability, cost savings, aesthetics, what more could you ask for? But really, what's at the intersection of these 3 concepts? Well, the easy button. Look, let's land this plane, all right? Given the increasing complexity of routine projects these days, the accelerated pace of every project, and the increasing cost of mistakes, what is one way that you can protect yourself? Well, let us do the work for you. Hit the easy button, order a pre-pack or other cabinet mounted system, and save your energy for all those other issues you face daily in the contracting business. Excuse me. So we're going to get you out of here early today, but we'd like to close out the presentation with a visit by several special guests to help you understand why reliable. So what is it that makes the pre-pack the industry leader, in our opinion, in this market space? Let's start with my good friend and colleague, Alan Larson. Alan is a veteran of the sprinkler industry, a reliable technical service manager with a focus on liaising with specifying engineers. If you're a specifying engineer, this is the guy that you want to talk to, and he wants to talk to you. You may also hear his voice when you call into the Reliable Technical Services support line with questions about pre-packs or any other reliable products. Go Blue.
Hi, I'm Alan Larson. I'm a technical services manager with the Reliable Automatic Sprinkler Company. We're here in our training room in our Liberty, South Carolina manufacturing facility, and let's take a quick tour of the Reliable Pre-Pack. One of the main features and benefits of Reliable Pre-Pack is that it is the smallest and lightest cabinetized system in the industry. We take up the smallest footprint. This unit and all the units will go through a standard 36 by 72 door. They will go on a standard elevator, so you do not need special equipment to move the unit around the location where you're going to install it. Again, the unit is 18 gauge steel. The typical color is black, as you see here, but we can provide any color that your end user would need. If you need red, we can provide red. If you need safety yellow, we can provide safety yellow. So with the door closed, there is a window that allows you to see everything that's going on with the internal release control panel. You can see the system gauges, so you know from the outside of the unit without ever opening the door what the system pneumatic pressure is and what the water supply pressure is for the unit. I'll step back and show you a unit here with the door open. One of the other features is that we do a white enameled interior so that you have reflectivity. So if you're in the typically well-lit mechanical room, you can see what's going on inside the unit. If I swing the release control panel out of the way, that's on a hinge, so it will swing out, gives you access to the unit. We have access panels on both sides and in the rear, so the technician doesn't necessarily have to go through the door to work on the unit. So this particular unit does have an internal nitrogen generator. But again, one of the main features and benefits of pre-pack is that we can build it any way that you need it. There are a series of options that you can specify, whether you want a nitrogen generator or not, whether you want or need an internal air compressor or not. We can set the unit up to use bottled nitrogen. We can do desiccant dryers if you're using some type of a shop air system. So there are many, many options that you can do. The units, regardless of size, maintain a nominal center line for the supply header and for the drain header. So you can install units of different sizes next to each other, and all you have to do is couple those units together. You can supply from the left or the right. You can drain from the left or the right. So all of these units, again, regardless of system type, can be seismically rated. There is a mounting kit that is an addition, that's an option that you provide and mount the unit, and the unit can be OSHPD certified as a seismic unit.
Thank you, Alan. So that was a brief description of some of the features and advantages of the Reliable Pre-Pack. Feel free to contact us in tech services with any other questions that you might have. So next, let's hear from Corporate Sales Training Manager Andy Waterman. So Andy does a lot of jobs, but one of the jobs that Andy does so well, and he does them all well, is to make sure that you get what you need. So each pre-pack is made to order and is customized, as Alan mentioned, based on the many options that Alan just spoke of. So we're constantly on the lookout for things that may not make sense or that we haven't seen before. And Andy is on the front line to make sure we deliver exactly what you need. So here's my friend and a great reliable family member, Andy Waterman.
Hello, I'm Andy Waterman. I am the Corporate Training Sales Manager at Reliable Automatic Sprinkler. I have worked for the company now for 17 years, most of that time in customer service and team lead for customer service. Having the opportunity to now work in Liberty, I really see the benefits of the entire process of pre-pack ordering. We take this extremely seriously at Reliable. We have a large team right here on site in Liberty that can walk a contractor through what really is pretty much the pinnacle of water-based fire protection from a viewpoint of intricacy. We have had customers send specs to our technical services people. They can interpret that, get it quickly back to our sales and customer service team, troubleshoot any issues through the ordering process, and then into the manufacturing process, where if a change or a redirect is required, we can do that quickly and efficiently. The customer service team here in Liberty that supports the distribution centers is outside my door. I can walk out the door, speak with them. They can contact manufacturing, or I can walk to the other side of the building and talk to them myself. It is very efficient and well thought out procedure. We appreciate your business, and we look forward to being able to continue to serve the fire protection industry. At Reliable, you are dealing with the best fire protection professionals in the business. It is the only thing we do. We take it very seriously, and we thank you for your business. Back to you, Cary.
Thank you, Andy. So many of us here at Reliable worked with Andy while he was in Chicago on the customer order desk. And I, for one, can't tell you how thrilled we are to have Andy in his new capacity in the Liberty, South Carolina manufacturing plant. His ability to cut through the chatter, get to the root of an issue, and confidently solve problems is second none. He is a true pleasure to work with. So finally, let's go directly to the plant floor. We build each and every one of these pre-packs at our South Carolina, Liberty, South Carolina manufacturing facility. We have access to the folks that build these, as Andy mentioned, and direct control of each and every one of these units. So let's go to the plant floor and let's hear from one of the elite team members responsible for building your pre-packs. Most of our production workers at Reliable are cross-trained to several departments to avoid mental fatigue and prevent repetitive motion injuries. But what I can tell you from having spent 7 years at the factory is that the team of pre-pack assemblers, and these are arguably the best of the best, does not change. And it gives me great confidence to see these familiar faces in the pre-pack area every time I go back to visit the factory. They're passionate and proud of what they can do for you. So let's hear from pre-pack assembly specialist Juan Mejia.
Hi, my name is Juan Mejia. I started to work for Reliable in 2004. And then they started to move the whole company to South Carolina. They offered me to come over. And then I started working on this unit right here, named pre-pack. I've been working this unit for 19 years already. And then I'll be very glad to work with a nice team I got on my side. And we've been building pre-pack for point to point around 4,000 pre-pack per person. In 19 years. I mean, and I feel very grateful to work for Reliable because they helped me out with my family, with my wife. She was sick and she helped me out with my wife. So I've been very grateful too to work on this department right here because I like it. I like the technology, the way they work, and we start building pre-pack from the beginning to the end. We do many different things like test all the components for separate first and then make sure all the components work. We got a QA department come and do the last test with us, make sure everything's working perfect before we got out to pack it and ship it to the customers. And the good things about the pre-pack is like all the components in one. It's all in one and it takes less place than all the big companies around. So yes, I'm very glad to work for this department. It's a more interesting thing for me in this area. So I'm glad to work on this department. Yes, and for make sure we got a good product, we have to be through QL. The QL department make all the tests make sure all the songs and outputs, everything is working on how it's supposed to. When we're done with the test, I have to sign my name to prove the unit is in perfect condition before I left this apartment.
So a huge thank you to Juan and all of our outstanding production workers, for the job they do. There were several key points in there that Juan pointed out. Juan was one of many employees who relocated from our earlier New York manufacturing facilities down to South Carolina in the mid 2000s. You heard him say that he has been building pre-packs for 19 years, not the one that was behind him, didn't take 19 years, but he's been working on those for 19 years. In that final cut, I hope you caught the fact that each pre-pack assembly is quality controlled and documented from top to bottom. And the final step before packaging and shipping that each of those units is the signature that the assembler places inside the unit by one or one of the other assembly specialists. So I'm going to sum this all up, and we're going to get you out of here a little bit early today. As I was wrapping up the presentation for today, I tried to highlight the main concept of each of those three guests, and here's kind of what I heard. So from Tech Services Manager Alan Larson on the pre-pack itself, very smartly engineered and can be customized to exactly what you need. So from Corporate Training Manager Andy Waterman on what to expect from customer service, nothing left to chance regarding your order. And then finally, from Assembly Specialist Juan Mejia on what he builds into each unit. Pride, dedication, and accountability. Again, each of these pre-packs is built on the plant floor, Liberty, South Carolina. If there is an issue with that unit, we know exactly who built it, when it was built, what it was intended to do. It's fully documented, serialized, and signed by each of the assemblers. Hit the easy button, everyone. So one last quick slide here before we wrap on where to find information about the Reliable pre-packs. Bulletins number 760 is going to guide you through the selection process. Bulletin 761 is the IOM, Installation, Operation, and Maintenance Manual. Both of these, as is all information about Reliable products, available on www.reliablesprinkler.com. Or, as I mentioned, get in touch directly with anyone in our technical services department. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. Hope everyone is well. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that may have come up.
Okay, Cary, just one quick question that I see here in the chat. Can these cabinets be set up for foam systems?
Yeah, the reality of that is that the mechanics of doing a foam system essentially is no different. I'm going to guess they're going to be deluge. Don't have to be. We do have closed head systems that are foam. But certainly, depending on how you'd like it set up, proportioner could be added above. Look, sometimes that proportioner might be below on a manifold feeding multiple systems, so that might not involve us. But certainly your normal foam system, injection system, bladder tank, we could put a proportioner inside the cabinet, pipe into it. Certainly that can be done. Would not be a huge challenge. It would be something that we don't put out right at the moment. We don't have that available. But again, the ability to customize each of these units and make it what you need is certainly within the realm of possibility. All you need to do is get in touch with us at Reliable through your salespeople or directly to technical services department.
Okay, one last question, Cary, that just showed up in the chat as well is, do we offer, not exactly sure what they're saying here, the testing valve and the additional drain? So I'm guessing they're asking if we include some type of test connection in the cabinet.
Yeah, it sounds to me, George, like what they're probably referring to is that system side control valve. And for each of these systems, that is an option. Now, what I can say about that, and this is probably something we internally should look into. We appreciate feedback always from our customer base, and this is actually a good one. When we do a system side control valve in these units, it is placed directly on top of the deluge valve. So unless there's a port in that butterfly valve that you can pull a test connection off of, it probably would be smart for us to, George, and this is something we need to think about, a spool piece with a 1-inch test connection available. And so what that gentleman or that lady is referring to is the ability to isolate the system in the cabinet with that service control valve, that upper control valve. Someone's going to go in. The first thing they're going to do is close the upper control valve. That prevents any water or foam, if it happened to be a foam system, from making its way out to the protected environment. What we need in addition to that is the ability, and it's there on the systems. We have drains and things like that. We have emergency manual releases. So there are ways to test that system. But yes, that upper service side control valve is a configurable option in all of the pre-packs. And when you get it, it comes wired, monitored, and wired back to the release control panel.
Okay, and I think one more question, Cary, and you know they're coming in a little fast and furious right now, but one of the questions is the cabinet, and I think Alan addressed it, but is the cabinet already assembled with the seismic kit?
No, so the answer to that is no, because not everyone is in a seismic area. What that seismic kit comprises is essentially 2 steel plates that go over the base mounting flange. It provides added strength. Those get quick bolted into the floor. The handle on the cabinet itself has a locking feature that prevents it from opening in the rattling around. And as part of what all pre-packs get is there was some additional bracing that has become now standard in the unit. And then finally, there is a particular label that goes on to indicate that the seismic kit has been installed and it is in place. But it is not a standard with the cabinets.
Okay. And then the last question, can we deliver these cabinets in Europe?
We certainly can. I don't know all the mechanics of that, but we have, for instance, the 50 hertz compressors that are generally required for overseas use. So yeah, the answer to that question is yes. Now, I do want to, something that crossed my mind here, and just a reminder to people that have ever been around Reliable and these units. One of the configurable options is the release control panel. And we have, we would like to say, always get these units with the release control panel. And I know that's not always the case. Sometimes you want to have a building fire alarm system that's responsible for releasing these. But you really, really want to think that one through. If you order this without the release control panel, whatever system is going to be responsible for releasing this unit must be compatible with the solenoids that come inside the units. So again, one of the huge benefits of these cabinet mounted systems is the all-in-one ability to have all the internal components wired, compatible, and all the wires are taken up to a 24-volt terminal box. That's where the interface happens with the detection system and the fire alarm monitoring. So really want to think about, does it make sense to not have that release control panel? And if you have questions on that, please get in touch with technical services, and we can walk you through the ins and outs of why you might or might not want to do that.
Perfect. And then one last question, which is always a tough one that just came in, is, okay, if I don't need customization, how quick can you turn it around?
So up until 6 months ago, we were putting out roughly 1 pre-pack per day. So let's just assume that 250 working days. Let's say we can get these out pretty quick. And when I say 6 months ago, what's the beauty that's happened? The pre-pack area has been expanded to accommodate future growth in this market space. So what's the turnaround time? A week? I don't know, a week and a half. One of the nice things, and again, one of the problems that people are trying to solve these days is the fast pace of construction, particularly if it's some kind of a tenant fit out or something like that, where you need equipment quickly. You don't have the hours in the day to build these complex riser arrangements. So what is it that you're looking for? You're looking for a product that I can get to the job site quickly. This is going to fit that bill. So everything changes on a day-to-day basis. Production schedules change, demand changes. But again, Reliable prides themselves on the ability to be flexible and nimble. If you have one that's emergent, for instance, work with your local sales team, work with technical services. We'll all put our heads together. We'll figure out how to get the job done for you in the time frame that you need. Not a solid answer, but we will do what is needed. You heard Andy Waterman talking about his ability to work directly with the production planners and the assemblers. Again, we like to think that we're very nimble and flexible with regard to schedules.
Okay, well, with that, we are out of questions. Great job as always, Cary.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Be well, and we will see you on the next webinar. We really appreciate your attendance today.